Welcome back to Keeping Up with Yesterday's Life. Today we're going to talk about a civil rights movement that happened 50 years ago. So you may be wondering, what's she talking about? Well, I'm about to explain. As I said earlier, 50 years ago a civil rights movement took place. This civil rights movement was given the name of sit-down movement, as well known as sit-in movement, which is another of many movements that African Americans have done to stop segregation and to show that we are all humans. But what's the definition of a civil rights movement? Basically, a civil rights movement, as the name states, is a movement to give the African Americans equal access to and opportunities for the basic privileges and rights of U.S. citizenship. This civil rights movement took place in Greensboro, North Carolina. What was this movement about? On February 1st, 1960, four African American freshman college students, starting from the left, Esau Blair Jr., David Richmond, Franklin McCain, and Joseph McNeil, made some purchases for school supplies in the local F.W. Woolworth department store. Later on, they decided to sit on the same store all-white lounge counter and ask for a coffee. They were denied the service they asked many times and were ignored because of their skin color. The spokesman of the group stated on an interview that, "We believe since we buy books and papers in the other part of the store, we should be served in this part." In the same interview, the store manager, C.L. Harris, stated that these four colored students could sit there if they wanted, that it meant nothing to him. He didn't even mention if it was the policy of the store or not to serve African Americans. According to the New York Times machine, on February 2nd, the college students arrived at 10 a.m. and at 12:30 p.m. there were so many in the group that some had to stand on the sidewalks and support them from there. A handful of white students joined the protests, and several state organizations endorsed it. Among them were the North Carolina Council of Human Relations, an interracial group, and the Unitarian Fellowship for Social Justice, which currently has an all-white membership. It's said by the news that they didn't speak or do any violent movement. The peaceful activist strategy rules were simple: sit and wait to be served. But still, they would get harassed, and white people would try to stop them from getting a seat. This situation got out of control, and C.M. Purdy, head of the company's district office in Atlanta, gave the order to close the lunch counter because he thought that by doing that he would stop and silence the protesters. As surprising as it is, this didn't stop the protesters. They would still come and protest. The spokesman once more stated that other shifts of students would come and take their places. Slowly, all white locals began to rebel against their own policies of segregation, breaking the walls between the races. Although the first sitting consisted on four activists, from 1960 to 1961, the movement consisted on over 70,000 African Americans and white participants. By the end of February 1960, lunch counter sit-ins had occurred in North Carolina and South Carolina, Tennessee, Maryland, Kentucky, Alabama, Virginia, and Florida. They spread in March to Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Georgia, and later to West Virginia, Ohio, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Illinois, Kansas, and Missouri. This movement demonstrated that it doesn't matter who you are, what you believe in, or where you come from. You can make a change if you're willing to risk everything and more for it. We could consider these four brave college students as role models because they stood up for what they believed in and in the correct manners. For next yet to come issues, we have to take in mind that violence is not key for resolving, but to making it harder to solve. We have to teach the younger generation the correct way to solve issues so that they can make the world a better place. Thanks for your time and see you soon!